Vamos a seguir la dinámica de las preguntas habituales en otras ruedas de prensa, pero sí que quería empezar, bueno, antes de nada diciendo buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Quería empezar haciendo una pregunta yo mismo y después iremos a las preguntas de los periodistas que están en la sala. Y es, bueno, felicidades por la película, acabo de salir de verla, me ha gustado mucho. He hecho en falta tener una copita de vino aquí, la verdad, pero me han puesto agua, o sea que no hay posibilidad. Quería preguntaros, hay una frase en la película donde uno de los personajes dice que atreverse es no hacer pie por un momento. Y me da la sensación de que en la película os habéis atrevido mucho, os habéis atrevido a algo que a lo largo de la historia del cine ha resultado bastante difícil de retratar, como es retratar la borrachera, además en diferentes fases distintas, ¿no? Entonces creo que, en mi opinión subjetiva, habéis hecho un gran trabajo en ese sentido, tanto a nivel de interpretación como de dirección, y me preguntaba qué tipo de proceso creativo habíais seguido para llegar a ese punto, ¿no? A nivel de documentación, de ensayos, cómo había sido trabajar con algo tan complicado como el dejarse llevar.
Well, first of all, we've done some research throughout life, even together. We've done some research, but on this particular film, we had a rehearsal period where we tried out different levels of alcohol, because I challenged these actors a lot by asking them to defend a very emotional, difficult journey of a character, and on top of that, to play drunk on so many levels. So we had to work on the drunkenness, and it was a very interesting process, I have to say. And, you know, you can add, as Matt has been saying a couple of times before, as an actor, very often when you portray things, it's about hiding what it is you actually want to say. Like if you're drunk, you would normally try to play sober and be as straight as possible, and just in a crack show that you're very drunk. And that's fine up until 0.6, 0.7.
Even 1.0?
1.0 maybe, but above that, it's a completely different way of acting, and that's where it becomes very difficult. We had to watch a lot of Russian videos on YouTube and stuff like that.
The thing is that reality is often more crazy than fiction. And watching some of these, as you said, Russian films where people are trying to focus on driving a bicycle, it's just insane to watch. I mean, you wouldn't get away with that on a theater stage, but we had to go all the way. So we were watching a lot of that and trying to get inspired.
Sí, buenas. Bueno, yo he quedado ebrio, embargado por la película. La verdad es que me ha encantado, me ha fascinado, desde el lema de Kierkegaard, ¿no? De que la vida es un sueño y que el amor es el contenido del sueño, hasta el final, que me ha parecido apoteósico. Y me parece un acierto, o sea, felicidades a los dos, al cineasta y al intérprete que están con nosotros, acercarse a un tema tan complicado como es el del alcoholismo sin maniqueísmos, ¿no? Quiero decir que, claro, el problema no es el alcohol, sino el abuso del mismo, ¿no? O sea, que se convierte en una adicción, o sea, puede tener su utilidad social, como se demuestra con el estudiante, para salir de un apuro, desinhibirse, etcétera. Pero claro, el problema es caer en la adicción y que se convierta... Parafraseando al príncipe de Dinamarca, no es beber o no beber, esa no es la cuestión, es beber demasiado o saber beber. O sea que, felicidades.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a beautiful analysis of our little investigation here. Hopefully, the movie, which is to some extent about drinking, is about something more than that as well. For me, the movie is also about the uncontrollable, which has no space in life anymore. The uncontrollable, an example of that is falling in love. You fall, it's out of your control, and you catch by accident something larger than life. Getting an idea is the same thing. You get something. It's not something you plan for. It's not in your schedule. It's not something you can buy or accomplish by studying or something. You get it from somewhere. Drinking is a contract somehow with the uncontrollable. You put the bottle to your mouth and you allow yourself into a different space, into a different room. And in that space, huge decisions have been made over world history. I'm often wondering about the moment where Churchill decides to send 200,000 or whatever civilians into war in fisher boats. Would he have done the same thing if he wasn't drunk? I just assumed that he was drunk because he was drunk most of the time. But these were just some thoughts to combine with our little movie here.
Hola, buenas. Tengo dos preguntas para Matt. Quería saber qué fue lo primero que pensaste nada más acabar de leer el guión por primera vez. Y segundo, ¿cómo fue el proceso de preparación de tu personaje y cuáles fueron los principales retos? Gracias.
Well, I knew about the project before I saw a script. Thomas pitched it for me, I think, a couple of years before we even got a script in our hands. And I loved the idea. Obviously, it was on a level of only idea. I knew that he would plan it into a story, which he always does, which is about humanity. In this case, about embracing life, friendship. So in many respects, this film has gone from having a theme that is about alcohol, but becoming a film that is addressing how often we do not embrace life. And I loved it right away when I read it. I always get a little saying, and I had a few notes, but I pulled them back because I thought the script was perfect as it was. Preparing was very much me reading it and talking with Thomas and going over some ideas of how the characters should behave throughout the story. But I guess we had a little more preparation, as you said, in terms of finding the levels of how drunk these guys are. And we spent a couple of weeks in infamous Centropa Studios. Well, we have a lot of experience about what it is being drunk ourselves, I guess. So we didn't have to go all that way, but we had to find some levels of what happens to the body language, what happens to the speech, so it was probably a little more preparation this time than it was the previous time we worked together.
Well, having said that, I'm sitting next to a very, very fine-tuned, excellent actor. And there wasn't much I had to say to him. He was in complete control of this whole thing. It was amazing. Bravo, Mads.
What? It's turning into a praising each other thing here. I like it.
Yes, hello, Peter Ho, German Television. I have a question to both of you. The film reminded me in a certain way of The Hunt. And I was wondering, as Mads Mikkelsen played the lead there and here, Thomas Winterberg, whether you have a certain distrust for these educational institutions like kindergarten and school. What do they do to the people who work there? Can you go on, explain about that?
Well, actually, honestly, I have to say the opposite. I consider school teachers heroes. Sharing knowledge with the next generation is probably one of the most meaningful things I could imagine. But I also know that it's a very vulnerable position you're in as a school teacher. You're in front of ambitious young people. You're in front of a possibility of aging really quickly because you have to repeat yourself all the time. And so I found this place in life. I find it that it must be very complicated, but I do think it's truly heroic what they do every day. If we compare with the Hunt and the teacher from the Hunt, the kindergarten teacher, she's actually doing her very best to protect the child. She's just doing the wrong thing. She too is a hero in my consideration.
Hello. Congratulations to you both. Brilliant work. I would like to know, I'm curious to know whether all that alcohol that the actors kept drinking was actual alcohol, and if so, how do you manage to keep everybody sober, or was everybody just drunk as a skunk all day long?
Skal jeg svare?
Sure. We love the framing now. Now we see ourselves. Can we get back to us seeing the journalist when we answer the questions? It's a little... Does anyone hear me up there?
Meanwhile, I'll answer.
Yes.
It was a dry set. The set had to be dry because they had to be drunk for 12 hours, or they had to pretend to be drunk for 12 hours. They had to work for 12 hours, and obviously they couldn't be drunk. And also, being drunk in front of camera because you're portraying a character that is drunk is called amateurism. What they did was acting. Which was just brilliant acting. And but in the preparation time, in the rehearsals, we did play around with a little bit of alcohol, and it was just for research purposes, I have to say. Also, we had an actor on set who has been dry for 8 years, and he's a member of the AA. So everything on the table had to be without alcohol.
Oh, hi, question from Rodrigo Fonseca, TV Globo. Winterberg, I have two questions for you. The first one is, thinking about The Hunt, the Commune, and now DRUK, I have the sensation that you are creating a kind of trilogy about friendship, because if you analyze those three films, all of them talks about friends and the importance of friends to somebody that is facing a tragic moment in their lives. Could you tell a few words about the importance of friendship to the kind of stories that you tell? And the second question to you concerns the cinematography. I would like to hear a few words about your work with your cinematography, especially in the last An Incredible Scene. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, friendship means the world to me, both as both in my private life and as inspiration for my movies. I would even extend it to say communities means everything to me. I grew up in a commune. I don't think I was ever alone for 1 minute before my 18th living year, my 18th birthday. Well, a couple of days after though. But so sharing and being part of communities has been my life always, and have somehow defined a lot of my movies, and was also one of my main attractions behind my membership of Dogma. It was a brotherhood. It was a bunch of people who threw themselves into a crazy experiment, holding hands, sharing this experience of doing something courageous, I would even say. And I guess there's a parallel to that in this little movie that we've done here. And yes, it's been a theme in my life and in my movies always.
Hola. No sé si quiere seguir diciendo algo. ¿Ha hecho así?
Worked with a brilliant cinematographer. He's called Sturla Brandt Grøvlen, and he just did a beautiful film called Wendy. He has an amazing sensation for the actors and what happens in the scenes. And what we agreed was to try to find the awkwardness of being sober and the smoothness of being drunk. That's how you can boil it down. So when there was meetings in the teacher's room, sounds and movements would be quirky and edgy. But when Mads had gotten a little bit in the bathroom, camera would start flying with him, and things would be calm and smooth. And of course, at the end scene, which I don't want to spoil too much, but you can say that Mads and Sturla was flying together somehow.
Sí, pues yo quería hacer dos preguntas y me van a perdonar, pero una de ellas está relacionada precisamente con el final. Yo quería saber si el baile de Mads Mikkelsen cómo estaba improvisado, había una coreografía preparada detrás, cómo fue ese momento. Y luego acerca de la elaboración del guión, quería saber cuántas vueltas le dio a su elaboración, a la hora de escribirlo, si hubo muchos borradores o muchas versiones, porque yo creo que la película está muy equilibrada, nunca tira demasiado hacia un punto de comedia o hacia un punto de patetismo de los personajes, o incluso hacia algún momento en el que nosotros como espectadores juzguemos a los personajes sobre si están haciendo bien, si están haciendo mal, o hacia dónde puede llegar ese experimento que están haciendo. Si trabajó mucho ese aspecto del guión.
So I will talk a little bit about the script, and you will talk about the dance, right?
Sure.
The script has been taking a long time. I just realized from a journalist just told me that I did an interview about this idea in 2013. So it wasn't that easy. But I guess the minute we decided, Tobias Lindholm, the co-writer of the movie, and myself, we decided to let this take place at a school as a mirror between our age and the youth, as with a certain scientific level, things started to go fast, and a movie quickly evolved. In terms of the dance scene, I will let Matt talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, actually, the dance scene, we were not quite on the same page for a long time, even when we started shooting. I mean, Thomas would love to have this dance scene, and I would love to oblige him in that. But I always had an idea that it should be a lifted scene, almost like a dream, a fantasy, a hallucination from his side. And every time I pitched that to Thomas, he just went, "No, you're dancing." And so I had to get my head around that and figure out how he could just do what he does between all these young, beautiful people. And when I accepted that, I called a friend of mine who's an actor as well, and I worked with a few times, and we started coming up with some steps, and it became a few more steps, and we kept it a little loose. And then we met on the day, and we started shooting the whole thing. And on the day, we came up with a few things as well. But it was a base of maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds of moves, and then from there we just went mixing it and improvising a little.
The scene looks very much like how it was, because it's like Mads is dancing a little bit, and then he's pulling back. And then he's dancing a little bit more, and then he's pulling back. And then he's flying.
That's right.
And that's how the process was.
It was. and I regret to say that sometimes you have to listen to your director. He was right.
But I can't dance.
Sí, hola, buenas tardes. Se está hablando mucho del tema del alcohol, tal, pero yo creo, bueno, para mí eso es como la anécdota de la película. O sea, el verdadero tema, y es por lo que quería preguntar, es un poco que lo que reflejáis una sociedad como paralizada, ¿no? Por el miedo al fracaso, por el miedo a fallar. También una sociedad donde es muy difícil, muy complicado exteriorizar los sentimientos, hablar de las emociones. Una sociedad en suma inhibida, ¿no? Que yo creo que es un poco por donde va la película, ¿no? La inhibición de una sociedad paralizada. Yo no sé si esta dificultad eso para compartir las emociones, esta inhibición, ¿creéis que es algo que define a la sociedad danesa o define de un modo singular también a un cierto modelo de masculinidad, ¿no? Que también me parece muy interesante que pues el retrato que hacéis, ¿no? de este grupo de amigos varones, no sé pues eso, esta inhibición hasta qué punto puede definir a la sociedad en su conjunto o a estos personajes. Gracias.
Well, I think everything you say is right. The alcohol is just a tool. It's just a journey that brings us towards something that we miss. The sense of togetherness, the sense of curiosity, the sense of brilliance, the sense of youth, primarily, I guess. I'm not sure it's particularly Danish, and I'm quite sure this is not particularly isolated for these four friends to yearn and miss these virtues of life. Hopefully, it's more universal than that. Obviously, the drinking rituals differ from country to country. We have a crazy thing called Christmas lunch, but in Rio they have a carnival. You know, it's we all have our different traditions. So that makes it Danish, but yearning for a larger life than the one you easily find yourself in, I hope and guess is universal. I don't know if that answers your very clever and smart question, but I tried.
Sí, hola. Uno de los efectos del alcohol, y esta pregunta es para Mats, es que se suelta el habla, hay más elocuencia, se habla un poco más. ¿Qué tan difícil fue para ti marcar esa transición en tu personaje, de un personaje que al comienzo tartamudea, casi que le cuesta mucho hablar con la gente que lo rodea, a cuando comienza el experimento y habla mucho más, se vuelve más elocuente tanto en clase como con su familia? ¿Fue un reto para ti?
No, I don't think it was a big challenge. I mean, it was in the story, it was in the script. We knew there was certain points he was hitting. As you say, in the beginning, he's sitting there, barely being able to talk, stuttering. And next time when he tries to take just a couple of shots, it's not much better. Actually, his speech is getting slurred, but he feels a little better. But when we watch it, it's not really A class education he's giving out. Then later on, when he does the bigger scenes where he's talking about Churchill and Hemingway, everything starts lifting, and he's getting more and more self-secure. And it explodes, obviously, in the last scene. It's peaking there. It was in the scenes, and we were just trying to figure out how much would be drunkenness and how much would just be him being open, self-confident. So we tried a few versions. How much would his speech be slurred? And we went for a combo of more happiness and less alcohol driven, as if he'd come to a stage where it was just flying. But as we often say, it is as you also mentioned, it's if you drink 2 beers and you play dart, you're like in the perfect zone, right? If you drink 7, you can't even hit the board, and if you drink 0, you don't want to play dart. So that's what we're experimenting with, like getting him out of his seat and making him want to play dart. And once he's there, then we experiment a little bit that he's getting a little too drunk some places.
Hej Thomas, og Mads, det er Sten fra Weekendavisen. I would like to know if this Norwegian professor who has made this statement, is that an invention of you, or did you have something from real life to look after?
Finn Skårderud is an existing person, and he has this theory. It's I think it's around 20 years old, and created a lot of resistance and trouble in Norway when it came out some years back. But he's defending it bravely, and we met him, and he's seen the film, and he's read the script, and he's been giving us a lot of knowledge about, like, academic knowledge about alcohol, which has been very useful. So he's a sort of collaborator on this movie, and this theory is for real.
So he's a kind of co-writer.
I wouldn't go that far. We had a couple of meetings, but writing the script took a couple of years. So,
but I mean, it's the theory itself. I mean, obviously, putting it down on a piece of paper might be surprising, but there's nothing really surprising about the idea that we fly a little better, that we play a little better dart after a couple of glasses of wine, and everybody out there in the crowd, you can ask yourself if you ever met your spouses, your husbands or wives, without having alcohol involved in that first meeting. And so that says a lot, I guess.
Allow me to get back to the Danish question. I'm thinking of Festen and the Hunt, and now DRUK. I think I read somewhere that in the public surveys, Denmark always comes across as the country with the happiest inhabitants. And I have the feeling that in your films you're trying to look behind the facade, or the kind of glimpses of where the cracks are in this happiness, in the Danish happiness. And you find quite a lot of cracks there. Is this one of the motives or one of the driving forces in your films?
Well, first of all, I have to question how do you measure happiness? It's an unanswerable question, I think. But secondly, well, we live in a very secure society, and it's, as everyone knows, a small society, and there's a tendency sometimes towards mediocrity, rationalism, and healthy life, and that makes you want to react as an artist. That makes you want to point at the elephant in the room, saying, "But hey, maybe people are telling us this is the happiest country in the world, but we do still have child abuse, or children lying about grown-ups, or alcohol issues, and stuff like that." So I guess as an artist, it's our obligation to make these exercises, and to investigate all these cracks, and to find real life in them, so that people can recognize themselves and not just a facade.
Sí, bueno, uno de los grandes aciertos de la película, que tiene muchos, es cuando se pregunta a los alumnos, ¿no?, estilos de vida y que eligen, el sobrio, etc. Yo, si no es indiscreto, quería preguntar, porque ya se ha dicho que la película no va sobre el alcohol, que el alcohol es un instrumento para hablar de la amistad y de las relaciones humanas, etcétera, etcétera, eso está claro. La película se dedica a alguien. ¿Por qué se le dedica, si es que se puede saber? ¿Cuál es el motivo de dedicar la película a esa persona a la que se le dedica?
Okay. This film started as a film about alcohol, friendship, and we had an ambition of elevating this film to be about life, not just being alive but living. 4 days into shooting this film, my daughter dies, and we're all shattered, and it was almost impossible to continue. It's very difficult to talk about as well. And we decided to continue making this movie because she loved the project so much, and she was a part of this project before she died. And so the only way we could continue making this movie was to make the movie for her. And by promising ourselves that it's not just an ambition to make a movie about life, it's now a circumstance. It has to be about something grander than just drinking. So that's why my daughter's name is at the end of this movie.
Okay, thank you so much. Yo creo que ya hemos llegado al tiempo, así que pido un gran aplauso para los dos por esta estupenda película. Muchas gracias por estar ahí en Dinamarca y muchas gracias a vosotros por todas las preguntas también.
Thank you so much.